Hi, everybody. Jim Ostrowski with the Liberty Moving Podcast. Beautiful fall day in Buffalo. To talk a little bit about running for chair of the LP. I just gave a big speech at the Hudson Valley Libertarian Gala. I kind of rolled out. I didn't really talk about running for chair, but I rolled out my program. So talk a little bit about that and an idea I had. First of all, if some donor would buy me a new selfie stick, because I'm sorry, you really, when you're a small operation, you've got to have good technology, and I pride myself in that. But this selfie stick is just driving me nuts, and I'm sure you don't want to hear it, but sorry, it's the reality. But the thing is, it speaks to the fact that I'm not a tool of the oligarchs. I have no funding behind me. My technology sucks. But, the ideas are really good. They're really fucking good. They're world class. They're state of the art. So, running for chair of the LP Libertarian Party on a platform of direct citizen action. And just want to talk a little bit about that. The convention is in Grand Rapids in May of 26. You have to be a delegate to vote for chair. And you become a delegate by getting involved in your state party, going to the state convention or meeting, and being elected delegate. That's generally how it works. I mean, I'm not familiar with all the 50 state rules, but I think they're basically all the same. So I think I was a delegate once or twice. I think once in my life, but I can't really remember. So why am I running? Well, I never really thought about being the chair of the Libertarian Party, either at the state level or the national level. I have been the chair of the Erie County Libertarian Party twice. And I can tell you that when I was chair, the party was extremely active. Extremely active. So I took it very seriously. So then at one point I went off to law school, so I had to give up that position. And then later on, many years later, I did the same position. And again, I think I did it pretty well. So I've been trying to get I wrote the book Direct Citizen Action in 2010. It was at the height of the Tea Party movement. And I've always been trying to mainstream libertarianism, mainstream it. It's been this fringe operation. It's been very ineffective throughout my career with the libertarian movement. My era, career, tenure, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to say career. This hasn't really been a career. But I've always been trying to mainstream it. So at that time, I was trying to mainstream it and bring it into the Tea Party movement, which really was started by the Ron Paul movement. A lot of people don't realize that. People at the time didn't realize it. But we libertarians realized it. So I wrote the book Direct Citizen Action to try to infuse some libertarian ideas and strategy into the Tea Party movement. And so that's how long I've been pushing this. I've written 5 books on it. I've been trying to get in recent months and I've been trying to get about using direct action as one of their official strategies, or really let's not get confused, because somebody was talking about, well, Rothbard and Sam Konkin debated this stuff 40 years ago. I'm aware of that. This is how long I've been in the movement. I know I read Sam Konkin's stuff. It's called about agorism. And I know I read Murray's articles about it too. Now, so hold on a second. So, leaf blowers. You gotta be fucking kidding me. So, Konkin believed in agorism, which is basically trying to achieve liberty through market transactions, which I also agree with that. That's a facet of my program. I think my program is actually somewhat different and broader than Konkin's, but frankly, it's 40 years ago. And I didn't start this direct action stuff because I read Sam Konkin like 30 years before that. I did it because I spent 30 years in politics in the trenches, more than I think Rothbard or Konkin ever did. And I just saw that the system was rigged and we got to do something else. So I started thinking about the concept of direct action. Now, Rothbard was against it. Rothbard believed in political action. So I'm not really against Rothbard in the sense that I'm not against all politics. Now, so politics, some of these, there's a lot of terminology in this. Boy, I need to shave. There's a lot of terminology in this that's technical. So when I say direct action, a lot of people think, well, if we hit the streets and protest in front of... No, that's not direct action. That is not direct action. That's indirect action. What are you protesting in front of City Hall for? Oh, because we wanted the councilman to do something different. I know. You want somebody else to do something. That's not direct action. There's a lot of I don't know why I'm pissed off, because I shouldn't be. I'm just frustrated. Direct action means things you can do today yourself without anybody else's permission that do two things. They move your life either in the direction of tangible liberty or in some other beneficial way. Sometimes we do things that you could say technically aren't really liberty-oriented, but they're improving the quality of your life, such as pulling your kids out of government school. But every form of direct action also moves society towards liberty, whether society wants to or not. For example, me walking 10,000 steps a day, that reduces society's total healthcare costs. And since half of healthcare costs are paid by the government, in theory, I'm cutting government spending. I know that's a little bit more complicated than it, but if enough people do what I do, blah, 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 I'm not only improving my liberty in the sense of health and fitness, and reducing my own healthcare costs, some of which are through taxes, I'm also reducing society's healthcare costs. So I know that's maybe not the best example, but so direct action means, and there's going to be a lot of discussions of this, believe me, if I continue to campaign, and if the campaign takes off, and if I get elected. So direct action is those things that you can do today to advance your liberty, and which also marginally, maybe only slightly, but tangibly improve the liberty of the greater society. That's direct action. Everything else is politics. So politics is basically politics is indirect action. See? If you have a choice between direct action and indirect action, I mean, just the vocabulary itself answers the question. Why would you want to do something indirectly that you can do directly? So politics is indirect action. You're always trying to get somebody else to do something. You're voting for somebody to do something. You're supporting a candidate so that the candidate can get elected and do something. You're filing a lawsuit so some judge can do something, or you're lobbying your state legislator so that person will do something. Well, let me tell you something. I can tell you a lot of things. Politics doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm not saying that it doesn't work in the absolute sense that there's never been an instance. No. I'm saying as a general proposition, politics doesn't work. And when you realize that it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's you're giving up other strategies, you're spending money, you're spending emotional, there's an emotional investment. There's a cost to your family, your social life, your friends, your health in some cases if it gets too stressful. So given the fact that it almost never, ever works, but it involves the expenditure of scarce resources, a lot of them, it's basically largely a waste of time. I'm not, the difference between me and Rothbard didn't favor agorism. I do. I'm not against politics entirely. But I just think that we should do direct action as our primary strategy and not political strategy. So that's basically the major forms of direct action would be voting with your feet, voting with your health, and there's pulling your kids out of government school and so on. These are the major forms of direct action. If you go to my website, libertymovement.org, they're listed there. There's about 15 of them, and there's other ones that I haven't really discovered yet, and others can chime in anytime they want. So why am I running for chair? Because I contacted every libertarian organization in the country, and including the National Party, and basically was ignored by every party except Hawaii and New York State. And I'm not complaining about those two states, but there hasn't really been any follow-up. Maybe that's my fault because I'm just one guy and I need to follow up. They seem to be interested, but no concrete action has been taken. There was a vacancy in the chair position of the National Libertarian Party. I think it was in January. And I contacted them. First of all, I couldn't get through to anybody to find out, like, okay, I want to run. Is there a way to speak at the meeting? I remember tuning into this meeting. I never got a chance to speak. Nobody nominated me. Nobody asked if I wanted to speak. The whole thing was really unprofessional, frankly. And so I said, and really, the only reason I wanted to run for chair at that point is not because I particularly wanted to be the chair, because it's a big job, it's an awesome responsibility, and that particular time is not really what I wanted to do professionally, but I certainly will, if elected in May, I will clear the decks and make sure I do that job. So, but I really wanted to run just to kind of insinuate myself into the conversation and stop being ignored. It's like, I don't really understand how a guy contacts 51 separate political organizations which are struggling to accomplish anything valuable in order to present a different strategy, and yet I get essentially ignored by 49 of the 51. Like, that's in and of itself indicative that there's something wrong with the Libertarian Party and how it functions. When you're stuck at 1% for 50 years and somebody who was the most experienced operative in the libertarian movement or the liberty movement, either one, comes and tries to offer advice and new ideas, and you don't at least embrace that person and say, hey, yeah, let's hear you out and see if you have anything to contribute. So that's kind of why I'm running. Is like, if I run for chair, I'll have to be given a forum, I assume. I don't know, unless there's some sort of Stalinistic tactics going on at the LP. I haven't really been too much involved in the LP in recent years. I've been involved over the last 45 years on and off, heavily at times. So that's basically it. So I'm running for chair of the National Libertarian Party on a strategy, on a platform of moving heavily towards direct action, while not eliminating politics entirely, but the political end has to be done better and smarter, more strategic. We have to figure out which races we want to be involved in and do those effectively. Our campaigns have, by and large, really not been effective, and I think they can be more effective. And ultimately, I believe that only through direct action strategies can we actually ultimately win in politics. And so, although there appears to be this big philosophical debate, direct action versus politics, ultimately you have to do both. And politics, which seems to be the favorite strategy of the party right now, will not succeed unless we do direct action in the form of pulling kids out of government school, because we manufacture libertarians by the dozen. The government manufactures status by the millions each year. And until we break up that government school monopoly, we're screwed. That has to be our number one issue. And that was the point that I made the other day, which is that in the aftermath of the Charlie King assassination and other recent acts of grotesque violence, nihilistic violence in the country, really all exhibit the fact that, as many of us have been saying for years, the country's in a state of decline, and now the country's in a state of severe crisis, and radical action needs to be taken. We're not going to reform our way out of this. We're not going to tinker our way out of this. The speech is online, by the way. You can watch the whole thing. So what I was advocating in the speech, and will continue to advocate as part of my campaign for chair, is a national coalition with other groups to encourage parents to pull their kids out of government schools. So that's pretty much what's going on. I wanted to point out one other idea that I just popped into my head after the libertarian speech the other day, which is that if I am elected, I will convene an international Liberty Movement conference on strategy. I don't think there's ever been one. If there had been, I probably would know about it, because you have to understand that I mentioned Konkin and Rothbard. So I've written 5 books on strategy for the Liberty Movement. Konkin wrote a monograph. You could call it a book. It's fine. It doesn't matter. And Rothbard wrote a couple of essays, the best of my knowledge. I don't think Rothbard ever... I'd be amazed if I found out that Rothbard wrote a book about strategy. He's written books that talk about strategy. So there's really been a lack of work in this area. I'm not saying I'm the only person who knows about strategy. I'm not. There's the Free State people, and certainly I know those people. I've spoken at their events. I support their movement. It's voting with your feet. I would extend that to other states. They might not agree with me on that, but that's my position. We need a national vote with your feet movement. Certainly supporting what New Hampshire's doing, but it has to be spread to other states, because you can't just have one state. If you're going to have a national or international liberty movement, it can't be just in one state. I'm sorry. That's my position. We can argue that out. So I want to have the first thing I'm going to do is convene an international conference on libertarian strategy for the liberty movement. And we're going to have it in Tennessee. And we're going to have it in Nashville. And if I can get the money or the approval, I'd like to have it at the Grand Ole Opry. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of all that, but if we're going to start being strategic, planning a meeting is a matter of strategy too. And there's a lot of reasons to have the meeting in Tennessee. I prefer East Tennessee, but you know what? They don't have an international airport there, to the best of my knowledge, and Nashville does. So if you're getting people in from Europe or Africa or Asia, a lot better to have it at Nashville for more flights. Why Tennessee? Well, Tennessee is fourth freest state on economic principles, and in my view, it's a state with a fairly heavy rural population. And I'll just give you one tidbit right now. Just to show you how lacking the movement has been in strategy. If you look, you would think that a movement that is at 1% in the polls would look at where it is strongest and try to build up that base, not to ignore any place else, but to try to build up that base. I've got a very noisy piece of equipment here, and of course the camera's going off tilt. Appreciate that. Definitely going to look into a new selfie stick because it's just annoying. I spent like $150 on this thing. Constantly have to adjust it. Sorry. I'm not a tool of the oligarchs. I don't have the best equipment. So, and I even so as far as what I was saying, if you look at where libertarians, and here comes the heavy equipment operator. It's like unbelievable. There's never anybody doing anything in this part. So, if you look at where libertarians do best and where they do worst, they do best in rural areas. I've talked about this with Dwayne Whitmer, and we developed a strategy, but again, if you don't have a political machine, if you don't have an oligarch behind you, you don't have the money to do any of these things. But if I was chair of the Libertarian Party, we would have. This guy's like stalking me. There's nobody in the park except me and the guy mowing the lawn. Jeez, unbelievable. I have a lot of respect for working people, but just trying to get this podcast done, folks. How am I going to put this thing on YouTube with all these interruptions? It's so annoying. Damn. Okay, got rid of the noise. Adjust the camera. Calm down. You can do it. Almost over. So, if our strongest area is rural, I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest. The Libertarian Party, I don't know, for some reason, seems to have shifted to the left. The last presidential candidate we had seemed to be kind of a left libertarian. He seems to be supported by the left libertarians that I know. And why are we drifting to the left? I don't want to drift to the right. I think the right is not pro-liberty either, but we certainly shouldn't be drifting to the left. We should be figuring out. I've met a lot of I get a couple minutes. I'm a city slicker all my life, but in the last 5 or 6 years, I've represented some rural people in legal matters, and I've gotten to know them pretty well. And they don't read Rothbard. They're not, they don't read Bastiat. But if you look at the way they live, they're sort of natural libertarians. I mean, if you have a farm out in the middle of nowhere, what do you need government for? You got everything you need right on the farm. They're self-sufficient. They're natural libertarians, which is why even though we haven't reached out to them and marketed to them and focused resources on them, they still support us more than the other it's a straight line. You go from the inner city where we get 0.1, 1/10 of 1% of the vote. You go to the ethnic working class neighborhoods, we get a little bit more. You go to the suburbs and we maybe get 1%. You go to the outer suburbs, we get 1.5%. And then you go into the rural areas and we get 2%. I noticed this a long time ago, but I've never seen anybody in the movement actually do anything about it. We're going to do something about it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to have the strategy session in Tennessee and start to figure out how we can appeal to rural Americans who they've been voting Republican, but they're not doing that well under Trump's tariff policies. I mean, the number one thing the libertarian movement should do is support farmers, for Christ's sake. Isn't that fucking obvious? So we're going to start doing it, folks. We're going to do it. There's going to be a lot of changes if I'm elected. I don't know what my chances are of being elected. Frankly, I kind of don't care. That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. I know that I'm running, and I know why, and I'm going to give it the best shot I can. And that's about all I have to say about that. Thanks for hearing me out. Sorry for the technical glitches. We're always working on that, and we'll talk to you all soon. Get registered as a delegate for the convention. Mark off May of 2025, and we're going to have a hell of a lot of fun. Everything I do is a lot of fun, believe me.